All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Inner Circle Podcast. Man, it's been a pretty cool week, man. It's a lot of big news coming out of Microsoft, and really excited about what they've been talking about and all the success they've been having. Before we get started, though, we're definitely waiting on B. B will definitely be here. Anchorman V is on vacation, so we will have a Trinity in place. And as soon as he gets in, we won't wait for him to come in, but when he comes in, we'll definitely try to recoup on any subjects that he had missed up on. But before we get started, what have you been playing this week, Sam?
So I've been playing a lot of Nier Automata, and speak of a B, there he is right now. There we go.
Okay, nice. B's in the building.
That's what's up.
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Good. We're doing well, dude. We literally just went live. Perfect timing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I was just asking Sam what he was playing this week. So what were you saying, Sam?
I've been playing a ton of Nier Automata. Become as God's Edition, the Xbox port. Just finished the first two playthroughs because without spoiling anything, you have to play the game multiple times to actually unlock everything and understand everything. That's a Yoko Taro standard trope. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it. It's very difficult to say anything about that game without giving huge plot twist away. Mm-hmm. I know you haven't played it yet. You said you were still waiting. You hadn't picked it up yet. B, have you played it yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I played it last year.
Cool. So, just to give you an idea, I just started Route C, so that's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
And all that. So that's where, things are going down, as you know.
Yeah. Yep.
But I'm hoping to finish that up this week. I'm really having a lot of fun with that. If you haven't gotten it yet for some reason, now that it's on Xbox as well, by all means, please do. Please support it. This is a fantastic game. It looks great on the X, too. And the other thing I've been playing is just a lot of Prey Moon Crash. That DLC is phenomenal. Arcane Austin really outdid themselves with a lot of the gameplay mechanics and the stuff players can use and toy around with and the setups and all that. I definitely argue it's better than the main game at this point. Okay. Because I've actually put more time into that DLC than I have into the main game, and I played through the main game.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
What you been playing this week?
This week I've been playing a lot of 2K, pretty heavy. 2K19. Their hype train is starting to roll right now. So they had the 2K mini event. I think it was on Friday. They had a lot of the community members out, and we're kind of showing off 2K19. So I'm in that mode right now, playing a lot of 2K, getting ready for 2K19. Playing a lot of Tekken 7. Got back to that. Just really, revving up, getting ready for Soul Calibur. Trying to get back into that fight mode. And then I got to mention Octopath Traveler, man. I've been playing a lot of that.
Nice.
Put about 20. Yeah, put about 20 hours into that so far. Really enjoying that game, man. If you got a Switch, man, definitely check it out. It's definitely a throwback to some of the old JRPG games with a mix of some new stuff. So pretty good game right there.
That's what's up.
Can I ask you one question about that?
Yeah.
I've heard some mixed opinions about the fact that, it's right there in the name Octopath, that it's 8 separate stories, is my understanding. 8 different characters, each have their separate story. How do you feel about that compared to like a more stereotypical JRPG plot, where it's, a ragtag bunch trying to save the world, basically?
I actually like the different stories because each character plays a little different. They bring something different to the table as far as what their class is, and then their abilities, and how they interact with the NPCs, and how they interact during battle. So I kind of like that. I wish the story was a little bit more fleshed out, because the way that you kind of start the game is you choose one character, and then kind of go on the journey and you meet the other characters. And to progress in the game, you kind of need the other characters. So you'll do like one chapter of the character's story, and then you kind of hop to the next character story. So I wish it was just more fleshed out, so that you get more story from each character instead of kind of hopping around. But I'm really enjoying it so far. Just trying to put everything together.
Nice.
You know what I like that when you said that and how you said like you travel around and you meet different characters and stuff like that, and basically how when you meet those characters they kind of progress the story or whatever. When you said you travel around to find characters and you meet the other characters in your group, it reminded me of like old school Final Fantasy X with Blitzball, where you would travel around the game and find the different Blitzball players to build your team. Uh,
Right.
I don't know why people don't utilize stuff like that in more games. Like if you had a squad or you had a team, you start out by yourself, and then as you go around, you try to find all these different players throughout the world to build the right team. And like just God willing, there's no at least there's no wiki on it at first, and there's no prima guide on it. So you're really just using your mind and really using your skills to travel around the world to collect different people to build the right team, and it really gives it a high replay value over time. If there were like, let's say 50 people, but you could only have 8 people on your squad. That would be really cool, man. That would be really cool because then it allows you to replay the game over and over and over again. I'm not sure saying that Octopath is that way, but just thinking about what you said and the way Blitzball was, it would be great to have a game like that. Me personally, I picked up EA Access. I beat NBA Live finally, which was okay. It was cool. I don't know what it is. You go through a whole entire season, you play a game, you get all these stats and these highlights, and you get to the championship game, you win the championship, and it's like 4 seconds. it's like here's your trophy, here's your MVP, peace, new season. I feel like they used to really celebrate back in the day on the older consoles. You know, when you won a championship, they would give you like a whole parade and, you know, fake announcers talking to you and everything like that. You would get the fireworks. Like, things are just kind of lame nowadays. They just, all right, move on to the next season. You just work so hard to get to the end. It was funny. Started playing Madden again with EA Access, and it's all right. It's cool, but I might pick up Madden this year. It's the only football game that I can pick up, and I'm really a big football fan. And I picked up Destiny's DLC. It was on sale for $20. I started the Osiris stuff and everything like that, and I'm on my way to. I'm on my way to. I just left Mercury. So I'm on my way to. I think it's Titan. I think I'm on my way to Titan. So, you know, it's cool, man. It's so far it's nothing special, but I do like the characters that they added or whatever. We'll see how it goes with the Warmind DLC. But really, I'm just looking forward to Forsaken, and I wanted to get that before the Forsaken DLC came out, and I'll be stuck paying an even bigger price just to get that game. So, we'll see how it all pans out long term. But listen, a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. A lot of people in the chat. I want to thank everybody for stopping out. Once again, thank you. You are now listening to Take Podcast, Premier Podcast for Xbox. Go ahead, give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Make sure you share out to all your friends and everything like that, and your groups and stuff that you are in. We greatly appreciate the support. And let's get the show started because we got a lot to discuss. So here we go. Welcome to the Inner Circle Podcast, the premier podcast for Xbox. I'm your host, Kara S. Kellel, with B Money 101.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Direwolf 484.
Hey there, everybody.
And shout out to Anchorman V, who's on vacation. And we are the Inner Circle Podcast. Oh, man, listen, Microsoft has come out recently with their recent interview from Matt Booty, who is now the head of Microsoft Game Studios. And one of the things he spoke about was Microsoft has a big interest in AA studios. And if you don't know what a AA studio is, you know, you always have indies. Indies are real independent. They come out with titles that aren't maybe that big, but they are really, you know, like creative. Most indie games are very creative. They take a lot of risks because there's so many indie games on the market. You have to be able to take a risk and do something unique and different to really draw people in on smaller titles. A lot of times you'll meet great indie developers like Devolver Digital. Obviously, you have a Moon Studios that's been very successful. You've had like the Telltale Games, little things like that, little studios like that. These indie developers, they work extremely hard and they produce all this great content. Then on the flip side, you have the big AAA publishers. You got guys like EA, Bethesda, Ubisoft, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, these guys put big budgets behind their titles. Titles are mostly $59.99 or more, big bundles, big packages. Sometimes they come packaged with bundles with games like the PS4 Spider-Man edition. And obviously later on this year, I'm sure they'll come out with a Forza Horizon edition, Xbox. But in between all of that, you have these mid-tier type titles. A company like Focus Home Interactive, which we praise a lot on this channel, is a company that has produced a lot of mid-tier titles, stuff like the Technomancer. You had Elix, you had Vampire. So they worked with a lot of titles where they aren't fully $60. They aren't indies. They just have enough quality to surpass an indie game, but not to the point to where the budget is so big it enters the realm of AAA level type games or AAA levels of marketing. But you wind up getting these really cool stories, and the games usually are, depending on how people receive them, anywhere between ratings normally between average or above average. But for the most part, they come in at about $39.99 or $29.99 in price. What Microsoft wants to do, apparently, and it's something that we spoke about when they first introduced Game Pass, is they want to be able to get AA publishers to supplement Game Pass with quality titles that may not be overly expensive because the budget and the timing it takes for a AAA title to come out. A game like Halo could take anywhere between 3 to 5 years. Gears, 3 to 5 years. Forza is, obviously is on a 2-year schedule for both titles. But they need something where when Microsoft puts out a title, you're getting a quality title at some point. And by them trying to find these AA studios, they feel like these AA studios could be the thing that sort of kind of puts them in the realm of Netflix. And that's how I looked at it. Like, Netflix has all of these shows where they're Netflix produced, and their TV shows are like basic TV shows. And you watch the TV shows, and some of the shows are pretty good, some of the shows are okay. And then every month or every other month or sometime at the end of the year, you get this massive production of a movie made by Netflix. And I mean, these things get, pretty good ratings to a point that some of the actors get nominated for Golden Globes or Emmys or whatever. I look at Microsoft doing the same thing. I feel like what they want to do with these AA publishers, they want to bring the AA publishers in to produce games that don't take as long as it would for a AAA title like Halo, Gears, or Forza, or Fable, or whatever they have with their next set of studios that's producing quality games. And making these AA studios, having these AA studios produce games that are like, what's the game from EA with the prisoners? I forget the
name. A Way Out.
A Way Out, correct. So a game like A Way Out is a really solid game, but it's not a massive budget game with massive amounts of hours. But that is something that came out in a short period of time, and that's what they want. They want to try to get games that come out every 1 to 2 years, something that doesn't take a massive long time to create, but at the same time, you're getting enough quality to where you're able to play and you can look forward to it, that the game is coming out on there. I think one of the games that recently released that's been received well was Vermintide, I think it's called, right?
Vermintide 2, yeah. Came out on Game Pass, doing extremely well, too.
Yes, it is. There's a ton of people on my friends list playing it, and I would like to check it out myself as soon as I get the time to. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you have this space and these gaps. And as we wait for these gaps, little games like that coming out, Vermintide 2, little titles similar to A Way Out, similar to Elix, similar to Vampire. If Microsoft is able to produce these smaller titles like that and put them on the platform, add in their own indie games, obviously like Ori and the Blind Forest or Cuphead or something like that, and then eventually sometime later in the year or in the beginning of the year, you start to get the big AAA titles or even AA titles from them. AAA titles as far as like Sea of Thieves, State of Decay, later in the year, Forza, maybe something else. You have Ashen coming out, even though Ashen is not going to be exclusive, but at one point it was, and then a few other titles. You might have something nice going, and it really gives Game Pass massive appeal. It's already appealing with its price point. It's going to have massive appeal if you start to produce original titles and original content on a regular basis or even a bi-monthly basis. And that would be huge if they're able to get enough studios where they are churning these games out, 2 to 3 AA games every year, and then the AAA titles are coming out every year, but they're alternating. Microsoft will really have something special going big time, and if they can get a few third parties on board like they did with Vermintide, I can't see how sky's not the limit for them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's part of their strategy. I mean, we talked about this before they launched Game Pass, how they really kind of need to supplement, those other months where we didn't have a big title releasing from, one of the first party studios, and we all thought, as far as the big major third parties, that it would be a bit of a struggle. You know what I mean? That they may not get a Call of Duty day one, or like a Battlefield, or something from Ubisoft day one. But if they went to those miniature developers, they may be able to get something, and they may be able to strike gold there. So I think that's a pretty smart strategy. I think if they can get some quality content there, they will see continued subscribers. Because I think one of the things they're probably looking at right now is that you saw like a high level of subscribers, and then you see like a lot of people drop off, or they come back and go back and forth, and they want to see continued subscribers there, for a longer period of time. So if you can keep the content coming, if you have something to release every month, whether it be something big or small, as long as it kind of hits that mark where it has an attraction to a great deal of people, then they're more likely to stay subscribed. So we'll have to see how it plays out. They definitely have been talking about investing more into the gaming division. So this is definitely one way that they can improve that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll back that up by saying I was on record for months now as saying if the Game Pass model is to succeed, the Netflix model really is what it is. You have to have a ton of content. Some of it may not resonate with people. Some of it may not sell well as a result. Some of it may not be critically acclaimed, but you have to have a ton of content coming. Now, Sea of Thieves and State of Decay 2 may have not done quite what some wanted them to, but they've definitely found their audiences, I would say. Very different audiences. Vermintide 2 seems to be exploding. And then Ashen is coming up as well. Ashen will be launching day and date on Game Pass. So if they can acquire, which is a big one. I was surprised when they announced that at E3. And so if they can acquire some more AA studios, or even just partner with them, not necessarily acquire them, just get them to bring their games at launch, that's huge. And I think as well, I mean, it's obviously early days as far as data is concerned, but so far the data is showing that Game Pass boosts game sales.
Right.
Even Rocket League, which has been out for a long time, got a big boost in sales, jumped to the top of the paid leaderboard on the Xbox store once it came to Game Pass. So if they can start partnering with these devs, getting publishers to bring these games over, it's going to have a chain reaction effect of improving the sales of those games, getting the word of mouth out, and getting bigger third parties on board. Because Bethesda's already checking it out, obviously, bringing, bringing what was it that they brought, Fallout 4, and then Ubisoft has The Division. So those aren't recent games, but they're definitely big titles all the same. And so big publishers are paying attention.
If I was Microsoft, I would pay Bethesda $100 million to put Skyrim 6 on Game Pass. How insane would that be? Like, how insane would it be to have Elder Scrolls 6 on Game Pass day and date?
Yeah, that would be insane. That would be crazy. That's not going to happen for a long time. But you know what? At the same time, Elder Scrolls 6 isn't going to be out for a long time, so they got plenty of time to build and get Game Pass up and start negotiations there. So I'm not going to say it's crazy. It could happen. That's far out.
I just look at it from the perspective that it's great to have this idea to want to have these AA publishers come on and try to produce content for you, especially in a time where people feel like you don't have the pedigree to do it. It's been obviously for some people a disappointing last couple of years. I seen a crazy dialogue earlier about how Microsoft continues to abandon their fan base at the end of every generation. You know, at the end of the Xbox generation, they decided to move on to 360, and now people feel like at the end of this generation, they're deciding to move on from the Xbox One X to the next Xbox, and they feel like same thing with 360, that they sort of abandoned the 360 at the end as well, because you didn't see a lot of new IP output. You kind of got a lot of the same rehash IPs that we already had, just new versions and offshoots of them. Other than Forza Horizon, which I think was the only new IP at the end of that generation. And then once the new generation started, you got stuff like Titanfall, which had a crossover and little things like that. I don't think people understand how this thing works in a way. I think with the original Xbox, yeah, I can see them sort of abandoning the original Xbox. I mean, they literally killed that thing probably like a few months into the 360 generation. But 360 never died off. It took a long time for them to say, okay, we're done selling 360s. You won't see a 360 anymore. It took a while for studios to stop putting games on 360. I'm not seeing how they abandoned the 360, and I don't see how people feel like they're abandoning the Xbox One. I just can't comprehend it. You're going to get, based on what they've said, we're going to get Gears 5 on the Xbox One X and Xbox One. We're going to get Halo Infinite. You're going to want to probably get in the next Forza. There's a few indie titles that's going to be coming out as well. Crackdown will probably hit the platform as well before we even get to see anything coming from the new studios that were acquired. Those games I can see hitting the next platform, but also hitting the Xbox One X probably, as the Xbox One X will probably become the base platform and the new platform will become the standard, you know, big, more powerful console that you have to kick out money for. So it's kind of disappointing. Obviously, that's going to be like a very fanboyish talk between people. It sucks when you want to kind of debate people or give people information that's logical to you and makes sense, but then you don't get that same logic back because the thinking isn't the same. You're not thinking from that perspective. You're just thinking from a fanboy or a gamer perspective and how you feel about your particular product and how you may dislike what this product in particular does. And it's obviously talking to people like that, you're never going to convince them to see what you see or convince them to say, okay, well, here's another side to that particular story. So for me, you know, I look at it, I see what Microsoft is doing with their studios. I just think the AA thing is a complete refresher. If they're able to pull this off before the end of the generation, and we're starting to see, you know, 1, 2, maybe even 3 AA titles hit the Xbox Game Pass before next gen, and then you start seeing the next, you know, Gears 5 is coming out, the next Forza, and some other crazy indie game at the end of the year. And then after that, it's Halo Infinite, and there's some other crazy indie game with it or whatever. And then as we go into the next console, and you still have these AA games coming out, I'm telling you, man, with the biggest thing on top of that is with that streaming service in Game Pass, you really got something crazy going. I don't really think people understand what Microsoft is trying to do. You know what I'm saying? People are so enamored with the console space. And again, I was one of them. I can't sit here and lie. To this day, I'm still not a fan of exclusives going to PC, but I understand that's a part of Microsoft ecosystem. And I accept that because it does nothing to me for the games that I like to play. And I'm not a PC gamer. I play on Xbox and always will for the most part, these consoles for the most part. But I got to respect the idea that they want to build this streaming service where you can run things from their servers onto any device, like even your phone at the same quality of what you're seeing on your box without the technology in the phone. Like this is insane because everything is going to be running server side. So all you basically need is the resolution. All the graphics, all that stuff is going to come through. Obviously, you need the bandwidth to handle it, especially on a phone or a device through streaming, which I don't know if we're there yet, but that's their goal. That's their end game as far as streaming from any device, or maybe even streaming something that you was already playing and taking it on the go. That's another huge thing. So Microsoft really has got some things up their sleeve, man. I can't praise the direction enough where they're going. Obviously, we want to see results. Gamers want to see results. They want to see games. And I think at E3, they spoke about what they want to do. And they showed us what's coming. And that's great. It's a great roadmap. It's reassuring as a fan. It's reassuring for all the fans out there who are interested in Xbox. Game Pass is a success. There's no denying that. And I just can't talk enough about how these guys really went from being in this space where people were lost and confused and didn't know where Xbox was going to now everything is back. It's starting to, take off again. And everybody's like, oh man, I got to pick up an Xbox One S, or I got to pick up an Xbox One X, or I can't wait to see what these studios do, or, and that's great. That's what you want. And that's momentum in their favor. And that's the only thing you can ask for. They just have to now deliver. And if they can get these studios in play and these AA games on Game Pass, they can really shake up the industry, I think.
Who do you think they should try to get games from, though? Is there a AA developer or two that you look at and say, okay, that's who I would want them to try to get games from?
I was actually doing some research on that, trying to see some of the smaller studios out there that Microsoft could take a look at. And obviously, we always go back to Focus Home because Focus Home isn't a massive studio. They've put out some average to above average games. I think they're in a space where they have some IPs that can be looked at and pushed even further. I think Vampire is a game that if had a AAA budget and AAA market, you can go to a whole nother level. But even for a AA game, taking a game like that and maybe even broadening it even more graphically, with Microsoft's money and finances, man, that would be huge. That would be really, really big. And obviously, that's a multi-plat, so I wouldn't want to take that game from anybody else. But I'm just looking at it from the perspective of Focus Home is one of the few studios that I can see that have produced some decent games, and it's garnered a lot of respect over the last couple of years as a solid studio. Devolver Digital is another, but the Devolver Digital has such a great relationship with Sony. I just can't see them creating games for Game Pass exclusively.
I mean, I don't think we can say that really. I mean, think about it. Ninja Theory was much more associated with Sony. They were really trying to get in bed with Sony, and then what happened? Terms with Microsoft were agreeable. They got them. So, I don't think I'm just saying after that bombshell, we can't explicitly go off of, well, who have they had a perfect relationship with in the past? That's just my 2 cents, though. I definitely think they're on the right path right now, getting, Fat Shark to bring Vermintide 2, getting Aurora 44 and Annapurna Interactive to bring Ashen. That's a huge start. I think if they could get Below and The Last Night on there as well, on Game Pass, that would be fantastic. That would be a great way of moving forward.
Yeah, Below's a really good game. Obviously, the Ashen Studio, to me, that game with a AA budget can really take it to the next level. I don't know what type of marketing or I don't know what type of funding Microsoft has supplied them with for the exclusivity. That game is completely improved both graphically and gameplay from what we originally saw. And it looks very exciting, and I'm really excited about this game. Again, we had them on back in 2015 before anybody knew who Aurora 44 were. So, to see them come so far has been really, really awesome. I just think Microsoft needs to find the right studio that's going to produce games that they don't already have.
Yeah, I'll tell you another one that would be a great pickup, actually, if they're interested in acquisition or even just an exclusive partnership or whatever. 11-Bit Studios. They made This War of Mine and Frostpunk. So they make, very dark, depressing, post-war, post-apocalypse type community-based, but they're single-player games, but they're games that deal around survival and interesting game mechanics, community management, things like that. So obviously, I'm biased because I'm a huge fan of their games, but I think they would be a great pickup for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think Microsoft is onto something. They just have to stick with it. I remember, a lot of Xbox fans, I talked to a lot of Xbox guys that I remember back when we first started, and they were all hyped for Xbox. And then suddenly, Microsoft messed up in 2017 with the closures and the cancellations, and then 2018 sort of seemed like it was going to recoup, but it didn't because of some poor releases that seem to be turning out pretty good now in hindsight. I think that I said this before. I think what Microsoft had to do was you had to like sort of like this was the analysis that I said on Twitter. I said that remember that movie with James Franco where he had to cut his arm off.
Yeah, when he was stuck like in a rock or whatever.
On a rock, right. So this was my analogy. Microsoft was James Franco. And Scalebound and Fable Legends and all the money that they had invested in these little studios and all the stuff like that was their arm. And the budgets and all the finances that they had invested in the direction they were going just was the boulder. And there was no way they were going to get from under all of this stuff. Fable Legends was just in a situation where they were investing and just felt like this game was not going to be successful overall. No matter how much we played it, no matter how big the beta was, the people who are playing these games are gamers. It's the one thing I give the Xbox team. Out of any other developer so far that I've seen, these guys are real gamers. I mean, you see them on Mixer. You can look at their gamer scores. These guys are out here playing these games, and they know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. No disrespect to any studio. I'm not saying that other publishers don't, but I'm just saying that we know that these guys are gamers. They're not just some, corporate suits. On the flip side of that, you have games like Scalebound, which, we've heard about what happened with Scalebound and the platinum game situation and the finance situation and how this game just wasn't turning out the way they felt. We wound up losing the guys who made, Matt's Curse of Brotherhood and Kalimba. They wound up releasing Twisted Pixel, which is another studio. The Scream Ride studio didn't do too well either. It just became a thing where I guess they were looking at what they were doing. It just wasn't the right direction. It wasn't the direction they were going to go long term once Phil took over. And he had to cut that arm off. And it wasn't something you were going to like. No one wants to lose an arm, fam. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to lose a whole arm. A whole arm? A finger, sure. A whole arm, bro. Nobody wants to lose a whole arm. No disrespect to people who have one arm. But I'm just saying the reality of it is if you could have that arm, you would want that arm back. And people didn't do well. They couldn't deal with it. It was devastating to so many fans. And even people who didn't care for Xbox, it just helped them chime in and really sort of bash the platform because of it. But in the end, you survive. You get out of that boulder, you get water, and you survive. And you live to maybe, have a great and normal life. And that's what Microsoft wound up doing. They wind up turning what would have been a disaster and seemed like the end for them around by reinvesting the money that they had in all of this other stuff that was just basically, fat that they had to trim. And now you look at the 5 studios. No one's complaining about the purchase of Ninja Theory. No one's complaining about the purchase of Playground Games. No one's, complaining about Compulsion or Undead Labs or even the creation of Initiative, something me and B Money have been crying for since we started Tick Podcast. So no one's complaining about that. And no one's complaining about Game Pass. Everybody loves Game Pass. Even the haters love Game Pass. You know what I'm saying? You can't not like Game Pass. It's $10. So it's just one of those things where it's like, in hindsight, yeah, it wasn't good. But when you look at where they are now, it makes total sense. And if you can't recognize that it took so much for them to get from where they were to where they are, and the hand that Phil had in doing that, because so many people said that Phil didn't do this, he didn't do a good enough job, he's been there since 2014, he did. All of that took time. It took time to basically destroy and rebuild, and that's what he wound up doing. So in the end, it's one of the reasons why I get them so much praise. Now, obviously, we have to see what games are produced. Like at the end of the day, it all comes down to what games are being made. Do we like the games? Are they up our alley? And hopefully they fall right in with what we want and what the platform needs. And based on the pedigree and the students that they purchase, it should be something that's different from what's already on the platform, which should be considered a great thing. And with Game Pass, you can always try it out before you buy it, which seems to be very successful for the games that they've been producing over the last couple of months. So we'll see what happens in the next year or two.
Which independent / AA studios do you think they should pick up or partner with?
I mean, it's kind of tough. I saw Delilah HD. She mentioned 4A. I think that'd be great. I mean, I think if we could ever get a dope Castlevania game back, even in like anime style, similar to what they're doing on Netflix with the show. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be huge. But 4A would be a pretty good one. I've always talked about Focus Home. I thought they put out some pretty solid IPs, and with the right funding and the right backing, with a little extra support, I think they'd be right there with some of the bigger names. I would like to see them partner with just like a Ready at Dawn. You know what I mean? I think Ready at Dawn's got a lot of talent, and they just haven't been able to show it just yet. But I think if you put them in, let them release some of their titles, and give them a little bit of backing, I think they could do something special. So, there's a couple of devs out there that that could really do something, especially in that type of space where you get a little extra backing from Microsoft, and you kind of feel like the weight is off your shoulders a little bit because you can put it in this platform and kind of really see how it does, and depending on how many subscribers are there and what the fan base is like at that point, you can really make a name for yourself. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, especially with the acquisition of their big studios that grab and announced at E3. It's going to be interesting to see, kind of how they announce games and what those genres are, and then what they kind of release around that stuff. So it's definitely a bright future for them, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the next 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know just a few podcasts before E3, we were talking and we thought, hey, are they ever going to found a new studio? And I believe the resounding theory was, no, they're not going to found one. They might acquire one, but they're not going to found any. So gaming as a whole seems to have a resurgent focus, and I'm all for that.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. So we're going to move on to our next subject. The guys over at Remedy have been hard at work on their new game Control, which seems like a sort of spiritual successor to Quantum Break. Based on what we've learned and what Sam has learned, a lot of the things that they couldn't do in Quantum Break, I guess maybe because of the lore and the way the game is based, they were able to achieve in Control, which is supposed to be a bit different. But literally, it looks like they're using the same exact effects and powers in this game.
they outright stated when I interviewed the devs, they explained that part of the thing was when they were developing Quantum Break, the Remedy is divided into 3 different teams. Okay, right now, the Remedy has a lot of employees. They've got a tiny team working on Crossfire 2, which is just a writing aspect. That's a very small part of the team. Then they've got a big part of their team is actually developing their Northlight engine. That's Remedy's proprietary tech for Quantum Break. Kind of like the ICE team within Naughty Dog. It's a similar structure there. And they were explained that when they were making Quantum Break, A, they were learning for next-gen hardware, and B, on top of that, they were actually developing this engine at the same time. Now that engine has been developed. So obviously they have a lot more workforce that's able to actually focus on making the game, not just developing the tech out.
Right. And that's great. I mean, that's all well and dandy. I mean, I can't complain about what Remedy has done over the years. They've been a solid studio. They produce some quality titles. I think Quantum Break got a lot of negative attention because of the live movie and content and some aspects of the game. But overall, I didn't think the game was as bad as people try to make it out to be. And graphically, it's one of the best looking games I've seen. I don't know why people don't give it its due respect, but it is what it is at the end of the day. So somebody asked the Remedy team if we will ever get a new Quantum Break and a new Alan Wake. And Remedy came out and tweeted that if people want a new Alan Wake and a new Quantum Break, they need to speak with Microsoft. And for half a second, I was like, oh yeah, well, that's typical. But then I felt dumbfounded because I know that Alan Wake is not owned by Microsoft. So what does Microsoft have over Remedy that they cannot produce a new AlanAke? And I got
exclusive publishing rights.
And that's what I was going to say. I got into a debate with somebody about that a couple days ago. and we spoke about how he felt that Remedy couldn't find a publisher to make the game, and I said, doesn't make sense. They just found a publisher to make Control. You know what I'm saying? If Remedy came out and said, hey, we want to make a new game, most publishers are going to be like, okay, absolutely, let's work it out. This is Remedy we're talking about. Is it a new Max Payne? Is it a new this? So if they want to make Alan Wake, they can make Alan Wake. That's not the problem. The problem is Microsoft has some sort of deal with Remedy where they can't make Alan Wake without Microsoft. And that's the only thing that makes sense, because if you own the IP, why would you need the permission of another publisher? So yeah, I do believe, and like I said before, either they had first rights, like basically the first refusal, if they wanted to make a new Alan Wake, Microsoft would have to say no, or they had exclusivity on the IP period, like the whole IP, which is insane to me because you own an IP but don't have control over it. What type of contract was that? That's a Don Matrick contract right there. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like a Don Matrick contract. But yeah, man, it just sounds like they have the IP, but they can't build it without Microsoft's permission. And that's an insane thought. And I don't know if we'll ever get a new Alan Wake or a new Quantum Break. And if I'm Microsoft, I would just buy the IPs. Honestly, if you don't want it, because listen, Microsoft has tried to acquire Remedy. Everybody says, why don't they just buy Remedy? Buy Remedy. You have to want to be bought. I don't think people understand how this works. If you're a company and you're trying to, blow up or trying to get a product out there and your finances aren't where they're supposed to be, you may be interested in an acquisition or being acquired by somebody. Obsidian came out a couple months ago and said that. But Remedy hasn't been that way. Remedy has always felt they wanted their independence. They've been successful in most of the games that they produce. And they just don't want to be under the boot of a big publisher. So they've been free. And I think what Microsoft has to do is, if they want to make a new Quantum Break or if they want to get a new Alan Wake done, you can't be dependent on third-party studios. You have to go out and create your own studios to make these games. So if I'm Microsoft, I would say let's go ahead and commission the next Alan Wake for the next platform. Obviously, if you worked on it now, it's not going to work. Work on it for next gen. If Remedy doesn't want to do it, I would then offer to buy Alan Wake. If they don't want to sell Alan Wake, I would build a studio to build Quantum Break and get somebody to really get all the assets for Remedy to work on this new project, and maybe even bring in some people from the Remedy team like they did with Epic and the Coalition. So I just find it baffling that Remedy would put themselves in a position where they have Alan Wake but no control over its development.
Well, we have to remember that they were fresh off of getting rid of Max Payne. You know what I mean? That's when Rockstar bought Max Payne, the rights to Max Payne.
Right.
They were basically coming in like, we want to put out this game. So like you said, this could have been a Don Matrick thing where Don Matrick was like, I got him. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And put him in a bag, because we all know that Remedy has shopped, you know what I mean, the Alan Wake 2. They had concept for it. They've approached Microsoft about the game, and Microsoft basically said, not at this time. And that's why we got Quantum Break at the end of the day. So they definitely have a willingness and want to make the game. And, like they mentioned on Twitter, you got to ask Microsoft if it's coming. So it's very interesting that we don't have an acknowledgement by Microsoft that they would be interested even of putting out Alan Wake 2, because it's one of those games that everyone has been asking for. It's definitely one of those story franchises from the 360 era that was pretty big, and it had a lot of decent DLC. So it would be interesting to see if it comes back next gen, and possibly could be, one of those launch window games, because I think that would kind of bring a lot of excitement, kind of going into next gen. But it's one of those bad situations for Remedy, you know what I mean? And I think that's why they kind of said that they would go out on their own, and they did the Control thing. And I would assume that, if Control is successful, they'll probably go that route from now on, where they kind of just put out third-party games and really flesh out, who they want to be and become a major player.
Mm.
Right. Obviously, a lot is going to depend on how Control sells. That's absolutely true. There's a lot balanced on the edge of a knife there, so to speak. Regardless, however, of how Control sells, Microsoft seems to be in a mood where they're like, oh yeah, we've remembered that the Xbox division exists. Phil Spencer's sitting at our table now. You know what? Let's give them a lot of money. We're letting them burn through cash. If they're letting me burn through cash, I would be running to Remedy right now and signing Alan Wake 2. Okay, that is your first move now that you've got all these new studios, as far as I'm concerned. Before you even acquire a new studio or build a new one from the ground up, you go get Alan Wake 2 signed. Having Alan Wake 2 as a launch title would be monumental. It would bring the house down, in my opinion. I think it really would. And it sort of rebuilds that relationship. Then, after sorry, go ahead, Cal.
No. Go ahead. Finish up.
I was just going to say, and then after that, you watch and you see how Control does. If Control sells well, what can you do? Remedy's going to stay independent, try to keep on partnering with them, try to keep on, partnering for the Alan Wake franchise, maybe even bring Quantum Break back. It's not as storied, but many people, including myself, still love it, still really enjoyed it. I know you did as well, Cal. Mm-hmm. And if Control doesn't sell well, if it doesn't turn out very well, then you know what? Maybe go around and say, hey, how would you like to have financial security? That Microsoft's in the mood right now where, Ninja Theory, Compulsion, Playground, they're all getting their creative control and that Microsoft moolah at the same time. That is a potent combination. And frankly, it's a combination we really haven't seen from them before. Prior to this, it's always been a situation of them, the executives having their hands in the studios, having a say in how things go. If that's not the case anymore, maybe they'd be open to an acquisition. I don't know. But one way or another, you get Alan Wake 2 signed. It's not even funny at this point.
Right. I would imagining having Alan Wake 2 next gen, all the graphics that you get, because Alan Wake was already a looker on the 360. It's probably it was one of the best looking games on 360 when it released. So Remedy is about graphics. You don't have to worry about this like checkerboarding thing that they were doing with Quantum Break now, and they could really go all out with new gen hardware. You put a game like that out and put that bad boy on Game Pass, you will have an instant hit, instant success. Not only will people play the game, you're gonna have people buying this game left and right. And I'll be honest with you. People might not like this, but Alan Wake, because it's built based on a book, like the premise is the book that he wrote came to life and he lost his wife in the book. Am I right?
That's an extremely simplified version, but yes.
Yeah. Right. So imagine making this game episodic and how much you can do based on the chapters of the book, because that's really what it is. You're sort of living the story of this book. You're living in this world trying to find somebody. And I just feel like a game like that would be a huge hit, a huge success if you were to make Alan Wake 2. You can make the original Alan Wake 2, but then turn around and sort of make the DLC episodic and put out a chapter here, a chapter there, a chapter there, and go forward. So that way, in 3 months, you got the next chapter of Quantum Wake. In another 3 months, you got the next chapter. I'm going to say Quantum Wake. Quantum Wake. Alan Wake in the next 3 months before you start either working on the next Alan Wake or even Quantum Break. So I just feel like Microsoft should definitely reach out to Remedy. I don't know what the relationship is. Remedy really seemed like they were done with Microsoft after Quantum Break, because I felt like they didn't want to make Quantum Break. We all found that out later on. They wanted to make Alan Wake, and Don Matrick and team said, no, we want something new. So they made Quantum Break instead. And with Quantum Break obviously not selling as well as people had hoped, or being as successful both critically and sales-wise, I think both Microsoft and Remedy are just taking a break from each other. And with Phil in charge now and Microsoft's new direction, I really hope that the relationship isn't sour, where they can have a sit down, talk about the things that they want to do, as a team and even maybe acquire them finally if Control isn't successful. But if it is successful, then still talk to them and see if you could begin working on Alan Wake 2, because I think having that in your library along with what you're ordering producing from Ninja Theory, whatever the initiative is working on, and whatever the next set of studios, obviously you'll get you'll get State of Decay 3 from them. Playground maybe might have Fable at that point, and we don't know what composures that project will be. But if you're able to pull this off, man, you have really beefed up your first party in a very short amount of time, and that's huge for them if they're able to pull that off. So I really hope that they have a sit down and have a conversation with the Remedy team and get that all sorted out. All right, we're gonna jump in. Microsoft has been a bit successful for all the things that people tried to kill the Xbox division on. The Xbox division seems to have had record-breaking sales. And I want to say that's due to not just third party, but Game Pass as well. Game Pass just seemed like it's just doing everything right for Microsoft when everybody said it was going to do everything wrong. So, obviously Microsoft had a great earnings report, and they apparently, for their division, made $10 billion out of gaming, which is basically huge for them. That is very huge. I believe it's revenue, not profit. That was 10 billion revenue. Am I right? Did anybody check that out?
Yeah,
and about 10.5 billion revenue.
Right. Yep. Okay. So 10.5 billion revenue, mostly due to third party support, obviously, because first party hasn't been as big. But I look at, again, Game Pass, Xbox Live is accounted for that. What they're doing with their games as a service titles. Sea of Thieves released last quarter. State of Decay released as well, I think, last quarter. Yeah. So that was huge for them overall. And for a company that hasn't relied on first party and still to pull off $10 billion, that is insane. That is just absolutely insane. They were supposed to go backwards. No first party exclusive. You're supposed to go backwards, apparently, but you're not. And it just goes to show you that what they've been doing really works. It actually is working. I'm a bit surprised that it's working, but it's actually working. So when we look at the 10.5 billion revenue, we're sitting up here saying to myself, oh, now we know why they got 5 new studios. And now they're looking for, you know what I'm saying? Now we know why they got 5 new studios and why they're trying to invest in, AA publishers coming on the Game Pass, and look, they're still looking for more AAA studios as well to purchase. It just goes to show that if you have a sound strategy, you have good leadership, and you have solid direction, and you're consumer friendly, things will fall in your favor regardless of what you're doing. Gaming is gaming. Exclusives are a part of that, an important part of that, but not the end all be all. And I think that's the thing we get confused a lot about. We base too much of what Microsoft is doing on their exclusives, and rightfully so. Exclusives are an identity. It's absolutely probably one of the most defining factors of any platform that you purchase. When you're able to sort of bypass that and still pull out $10 billion without putting out any massive big titles like a Halo, Gears of Forza, or Fable, or even Crackdown at this point, that's really impressive, man. I tip my hat to them. What do you guys think Microsoft is planning after making? Do you think they look at Xbox differently now that the Xbox brand is really starting to come into its own?
I'd say so. I'd say they go. I mean, I'm assuming here. I'm making some serious assumptions, but if I'm Microsoft, board of suits looking at this, I'd go, giving this Phil guy a lot of money gives us a lot of money. Interesting. Neat. And fans like us. It's amazing how that works. I mean, I'd be stunned if they don't see the correlation between positive press. Games media has, responded very well to their E3 and to their direction now, to their pro-consumer stuff that they're all about right now. I would say you keep at it. You double down. Keep on investing.
Right.
Yeah, like Sam said, man, it's basic algebra. And if those guys up in that board room don't understand that, gaming is the second biggest form of entertainment in the world, and if you continue to invest, you will reap the benefits of it, and then there's something wrong with them. You know what I mean? $10 billion is in revenue. That's a huge number. You know what I mean?
Dude.
A lot of big businesses don't see that type of revenue come back in a year. So when you see that type of revenue come back, you have to look at it with eyes wide open and analyze those numbers and see why your investment is working well for you. So definitely double down on that. You know what I mean? And like Sam said, if you continue to support it, it'll fatten up those pockets for you. So just
absolutely.
Continue to support it, man, because it's only going to get bigger. You know what I mean? Gaming is only going to get bigger, and it's probably at some point going to be the biggest form of entertainment in the world.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, keep in mind, Nintendo's gaming revenue within the same time span was about 9.5 billion. Now, obviously, that remaining billion is services. Make no mistake, that's Game Pass and Xbox Live doing some work there. But nonetheless, the point remains, for at least this quarter, for at least this section of time that they were measuring, their gaming revenue was above Nintendo. That is a huge bullet point to be putting in investors' faces.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read off some of these some of the quotes, or actually some of the stuff that was written by our team and our EIC, Jason, who is also known as Edge XL, who's in chat with us right now. Shout out to our EIC over at Tick Games Network. Make sure you go check out and support Tick Games Network, the website that is for gamers, made and produced by gamers. Basically, it says the company's gaming revenue increased 39% in the fourth quarter, which, if you don't know, business quarters wise, that was the ending quarter for the fiscal year for businesses was June 30th. So the last 3 months, so you're talking about, what is that, April, May, June? So April, May, June was the last quarter. So from April, May, and June, their revenue increased 39%. And that was from Xbox software and services. Xbox software is up 36%, driven mainly by third-party game sales. Monthly active users for Xbox Live grew 8% to 57 million people. That's a pretty amazing number. And I guess they look at active users as people who have an Xbox Live subscription that are both on PC and Xbox. I don't think they're actually counting people who have paid subscriptions. You know what I'm saying? Like, are they counting? They're not counting silver subscriptions, are they? Because
no,
free,
of course
right?
not.
So basically,
I mean, well, okay. I don't think they are. I don't know.
They count anybody who has Xbox Live. So even if you have a server account, that's an active.
That's an active account. As long as it's active, right. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so any active accounts, all right. That that makes sense.
All right, so that grew 8% to 57 million. Gaming revenue for the fiscal year was 10.35 billion, up from 9 billion in the same year of in the fiscal year of 2017. It's obviously it shows Microsoft's gaming business made up almost 10% of the company overall. It then goes into Microsoft's revenue from cloud services was up 26%. Surface devices was 25%. The revenue from Surface was 1.1 billion. So I would assume those are probably mobile, both hardware sales and probably software or games purchased from the Windows Store. Would that be considered, or do you just think it's just hardware?
That probably mostly hardware.
Mostly hardware.
Yeah, with them going with the Surface tablet and then going to the Surface laptop and then the Surface actual PC, I would guess that'd be mostly hardware.
Yo, 1.1 billion is hella successful. 1.1 billion for hardware? That's Surface.
That's doing work.
Surface
sales.
Surface sales. I'm surprised that Surface. I knew Surface was popular, but I didn't think it was going to be 1.1 billion popular.
And it's also, you'll see that number increase, especially with them going with that lower level Surface, getting at that $400 mark. You'll see a lot more people adopt that. So expect that number to go up next year.
Right, and it actually says next month Microsoft released the Surface Go, the first new Surface product to launch this year. And then he goes into some other things as far as revenue and everything like that. But yeah, man, I also just read that their cloud services are catching up to Amazon. They're getting real close to Amazon.
They're bigger than Google in terms of cloud infrastructure. They're way bigger, and they're catching up to Amazon. They acquired PlayFab, which is a cloud division that provides like cloud services for gaming. And this is my basic algebra, so you guys tell me if 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 here, but I'd say that PlayFab was acquired in order to help the console quality streaming that they talked about at E3. They're going to integrate that into Game Pass at some point.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. Listen, man, Microsoft is running on all cylinders right now. All they need is to get their exclusives in order. I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, once they get these first party games in, and I always stress, man, people don't give their first party enough credit. Yes, they've had some downs, some setbacks the last year and some change, starting from 2017. But you look at, again, State of Decay 2 has been a success. Sea of Thieves has been a success, regardless of how people feel about those games and what they offer. Those two games have been a success for Xbox. All the games they released prior to 2017, from 2016, 15, 14, and 13. If you just think, if they had these 5 studios and what they're trying to do now with Game Pass and those AA studios, nobody would think anything about Microsoft. Like, none of the nonsense that we heard about Xbox, besides their fiasco of a release, would be brought up. And now Microsoft is trying to fight the narrative that they're trying to kill the generation. It's kind of like you just go from one thing to something else. It's like as soon as Microsoft gets the ball rolling and momentum is in their favor again, Microsoft is abandoning the Xbox for the next platform. They're abandoning the Xbox One for the next platform. And it's kind of disappointing, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like you see a product, and again, I'm not trying to fanboy out or anything like that, but you see a product that you support, that's your preferred platform, and millions of Xbox fans and gamers out there want to see succeed because they love the platform, they like the box, they like their friends on that box. And this negative stereotype keeps going around about its destruction and its end. And 10.5 billion says, nah, bruh, we ain't going nowhere.
I just don't understand that narrative of them abandoning the Xbox. I mean, they've spoken about it many times about how this Xbox platform is forward and backward compatible. Mm-hmm. So, you know what I mean? When you look at it, it's just the upgrade, you know what I mean? So like, it's like buying a new graphics card, when NVIDIA and AMD put out their new graphics cards, you know what I mean? It gives players the option to upgrade, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get the same content. And, you know what I mean? That family of Xbox will still spread across multiple consoles. So at the end of the day, I don't understand that narrative of saying, oh, they're abandoning us. You're still gonna get the same content. They didn't say they're stopped making games, or you know what I mean, all these games will only be for the next Xbox. You know what I mean? You still get that same quality content, and you'll still have your same friends, and you don't have to move from the box that you're currently on if you don't want to.
Right. Absolutely. Before we finish up, man, and try to hop into some Q&A, Absolver, I've been waiting for this game forever. It's finally come to the Xbox. Did you play Absolver on PS4, B?
No, I actually just downloaded it because they had it on PlayStation Plus, but I haven't got a chance to check it out yet. But it definitely was on my radar before. You know what I mean? It reminds me a lot of Jade Empire. So I definitely want to check it out.
It's so funny because I remember a few years ago when all these games were coming out and they just seemed like they were exclusive to one platform or another. And I'm just like, I don't understand, man. Like, I don't get it. Like, there's a whole base. It's like 20-something million consoles or 15-something million consoles in America. No one cares about all these consoles in the US or 4 or 5 million consoles in the UK or whatever. Like, you're just going to ignore all these people. And here we go, a year later, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, all of these games that were once on one platform are now crossing over. I recently just seen Candlelight Man is on its way to PS4. You know what I'm saying? And that was a big indie game, And now we're talking about Absolver coming to Xbox, and that was something that I've been looking forward to for a while. Even when I had to have my PlayStation, I was looking into it as well. To pick it up and play it. So it's good to see the continued success of Microsoft getting, even if the titles are older, they're starting to get that support again. They definitely need to go into the next generation strong. A lot of confidence, strong hardware, powerful hardware. I don't think Microsoft can come out first. Like, I don't think them having like the 360 era and trying to be first out the gate, which is something that Michael Pachter said, which I don't believe. I think they will come out in 2020, just like PlayStation 5 will, around the same time or the same month. And hopefully none of their ideas or blueprints leak out like they did with the Xbox One. But if Microsoft can get the best hardware they can get out there and they can release it right at the right time and not release first like in 2019 or something like that, I think that they will be on the right path to success to come out the gate and get a lot of people in on what they're doing early. And that's what they got to do to really get momentum back. I know a lot of people say, well, half the fan base that left that was on Xbox were never really a part of Xbox anyway. They were on the PS2. Like 160 million people were on PS2, and then they split the next generation with the PlayStation, both doing like 85 and like 86 million a piece, and then the Wii just catching fire because it's the Wii, and having over 100 million consoles. This generation is a bit different, but Microsoft has an opportunity now with the studios that they have, the new direction of Halo, Gears, Game Pass, the AA platform. Obviously, Xbox One X hardware has been real successful. If they can just get the next set of hardware to take it to a whole new level and do exactly what they were saying, then they'll be good, man. They will be on the rise, and I think that would be the right idea and the right thing for them.
Yeah, I think they definitely got to come out of the gate swinging. You know what I mean? I think content has to be there. The consoles, ability to be, one of the best on the market has to be there. And they continue their services and being consumer friendly. That'll definitely, have people second guessing, if they want to go back to PlayStation or come over to Xbox. So as long as they hit those marks, coming out of the gate and their messaging is very clear, because I think that's one of the biggest issues that they've had for a while, is that the messaging can kind of get a little bit muddy, and people don't really understand what their intentions are. So the messaging has to be clear coming out the gate, and I think they'll get a lot of people on their side.
Right. Is there any games you guys are looking forward to this month before we head out of here?
This month. I'm going to be paying attention to see how No Man's Sky Next does. I'm not picking it up at launch, but I'll be paying attention because it definitely looks like it's that they originate. So okay. I hope all goes well. Beyond that, not really. Beyond that, I'm just playing the games I already got, bro.
Right. What about you, B? Anything this month?
Definitely picking up that Mega Man X collection. You know what I mean? I got to. I've been waiting for them to bring that back, and now that it's on, just this generation of consoles, I got to pick that up. And there's been rumors that they might be coming out with Mega Man X9. You know what I mean? So how they did Mega Man 11. So if they do that, I'll be super hyped for that. So yeah, definitely got to pick that up.
Yeah, I was looking both to Mega Man 11 and No Man's Sky Next. No Man's Sky Next looks real interesting. Does No Man's Sky have a building system to it? Like you can build buildings and stuff to it?
Yeah, it will. It has a crafting system, and it's got multiplayer will be coming with the next update, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that interests me a lot. I like to build stuff. Like I like building castles and buildings and houses and all that stuff. Like that's one of the things that captures me the most when I play survival games, is building the base and fortifying the base and all that stuff like that. I really get into it for hours and hours and hours. My wife hates it. She hates it so much because I spend hours and hours on it. But definitely looking forward to those two games whenever they release, and finally getting the Mega Man that we deserve, not the mighty number 9. which I think a lot of people didn't like. So it's going to be interesting once those games come out. So listen, man, that's going to be it for this week's show. I want to thank everybody for stopping out. We hit almost 50 or higher in the view count. I am very appreciative and grateful for the support. As always, make sure you leave a like, which is a thumbs up for here on Tick Games Network, the premier podcast for Xbox. If you don't check the show out, you can always catch us on Spotify. If you missed this week's episode, you can catch us on Spotify. We're also on iTunes and Google Music, as well as a few other apps. Just look up TIC Podcasts in the podcast section of those respective devices, and you should be able to find us, or just do a Google search and we'll pop up, because we've been doing this for a very long time. So we are number one in the tech department. So once again, I'm your host, Kelroy S. Kellel, with B Money 101, Direwolf 484, and we are off this planet. You guys have a great night. Peace. All right. With the show over, once again, I want to thank everybody for stopping out. I always take a small gap because that helps me edit properly. And once I see that space, man, it makes it a lot easier to cut out certain things for the MP3 crowd. If you guys have any questions for us concerning tonight's show and the topics that we discussed, or any thoughts, go ahead and leave them in the chat. Make sure you leave a question mark behind it, and we will do our best to answer. We always try to take time out to you guys for stopping out and watching the show, so we try to give you guys the attention you deserve. Big shout out to Jose Segura. I don't know why that came out that way. I want to say Segura. Is that right? Am I saying that right? I don't know. But if not, thanks for coming out to the show. Chief Tommy, shout out to the boy, Chief Tommy. Thank you for stopping out. Delilah HD, thank you, my dear, as always, for the support. File Davikin, thank you as well. Edge Excel, thank you as well. Andrew Wilkerson for the support, as always, coming out and hanging out with the team, even if you are apparently in timeout and had most of your messages deleted. We appreciate you coming in and trolling for the time you were here. Shout out to Saltiest Game Man, the Relative Native, Mike M. Who else was out here tonight hanging out with the team? Mr. Kima. Big shout out to Mr. Kima and the DX crew out there. Let's see here. iDizzy as well. Big shout out. Predator H20. Want to thank you as well for the shout out. Predator H20 actually asked a question on a couple, like probably early in the show. He says, if you could downgrade a current AAA studio down to a AA studio based on their latest games over the past 5 years, who would you nominate? That is insane.
I'm sorry, bro, but that's a really weird question, okay?
That's a tough question. If you could downgrade a current AAA studio down to a AA studio based on their latest games over the past 5 years, who would you nominate? Wow. The past 5 years. A AAA studio.
I got nothing. I'm sorry. I got nothing, though.
The problem is that the 5 years is too long, because most studios that probably crapped out and would have been purchasable because they had solid, like they produced solid games and probably would have been purchasable, have probably either been disbanded or been absorbed by another company. Like for a minute there, I would have been like THQ, but THQ is like gotten big again. Like they've been absorbing other studios and they've been putting out some pretty solid titles over the last couple of years. Man, I can't think of any major big AAA guys out there. Like even Ubisoft set their game up a few years ago. This question would have been relevant. Ubisoft just had a whole bunch of monstrous characters with eyes rolling around and teeth with no faces and all types of stuff like that. That would have been real interesting. But obviously those things change over time. Sega, I like Sega. Sega would be an amazing pickup for Microsoft. I just feel like Microsoft and Sega work great together. You know what I'm saying? If you could pick up any Japanese studio, Sega would be the studio to pick up, honestly. But I don't see how that would work out overall. Shout out to Jonathan B for hanging out with us tonight as well. Iron Lord Squad. Big shout out to Super Cooper. And Eternal Shaddai, thank you, my brother, for stopping out, as well as Chris Washington. So, and Zach Karim. I don't want to miss Zach Karim. So, big shout out to everybody out there, man, who was out there supporting us tonight. We really appreciate it. All right, so we got a few questions in. Let's see what we have here. Follow Debunking asks, what are your thoughts on Turn 10 saying they are not making Forza 8 and they are still working on 7? Do you think they are waiting for next generation?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. They're doubling down on Forza 7, which is the appropriate thing to do. It got a good reaction. It got like an 87, 86 on Metacritic. But they're doing the right thing by addressing any concerns and providing DLC and content there. And then, going all out, giving Motorsport a bit of a breather, releasing it, presumably, I would say, in 2020 when the next-gen hardware arrives. Have that as a launch game. And then I'm still sticking to my theory that there's going to be a third new spin-off in the Forza franchise that comes out next year, because Playground certainly won't be ready either.
Forza boats.
And I also to add on that, I wouldn't doubt that they would try to make Forza a platform similar to how I think they're going to do with Halo. I would assume that they would probably do that with Forza as well, where it's just
continuous. It's just a continuous platform, like an open world Forza. Yo, that would be. I've never heard of nothing like that before.
Rocket League has shown it can work. The Psyonix has explicitly stated that there's not going to be a Rocket League 2 for the foreseeable future. The base game just does so well that they're going to keep on adding content and cars and stuff. They could do the same thing. That makes a lot of sense. Like a Forza 8 could be like a Forza Motorsport platform that they just keep on building on.
A Forza platform. That is new. I'm actually intrigued by that and want to discuss that at some point. We'll try to hold on to that for next week for sure. That's a very interesting concept, something that I never thought of, a racing game as a platform. So at Rocket League is competitive. It has a competitive space. I know Forza's competitive. Forza Motorsport is competitive in that you have these races at these tracks. But Rocket League it's Rocket League. It's so arcadish, and you're driving up the walls, and you got boosts on the back of your car. You're jumping in the air. You're propelling yourself. There's such a huge difference in those two. An evolving world in Forza. That's very interesting. That is interesting indeed. It would be cool though. I'm not gonna lie, it would be cool if like they just had constant tournaments and there was a world where there was always a champion. You could always be a champion in the game at all times if you're the best. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be cool. Let's see here. Delilah HD asks, what do you think Microsoft will do for Gamescom, or will it be a replay of E3?
I think it'll be like an extended episode of Inside Xbox.
Oh, that's
like
terrible.
It's not there. No, it can't be any worse than last year.
Don't say that.
Lord.
Please don't say that. No, I think
set your expectations right now, Cal. Set your expectations right here and right now.
They said they're going to have 25 games at Gamescom. And
to play for the people who are there.
For the people who are there, that's what they said. 25 games for the people who are there to play. Oh, this is going to be bad. You're right. I thought it was going to be like some trailers or something like that. Like they were actually going to have a conference. Are they having a conference, or did they rebut that?
No conference.
No. Oh, this is bad.
No conference.
This is going to be bad. You're right,
man. I'm just preparing you. I'm just going ahead and preparing you. I'm not pretending to be happy about it.
Oh my!
I'm just telling you what it is. Hey, no one more than me wishes that they get back to the 2015. You guys remember their 2015 Gamescom?
Yeah,
that was awesome. That was amazing.
All the time. That's what they need to do. That's what they need
to do. They had Remedy come out there, Sam Lake on stage. They had Sean Ashmore, and they were trotting out talking about Quantum Break. And I mean, regardless of what you felt about the TV show, they were in it. They were pumped for it. They showed off Crackdown 3's multiplayer. They had a ton of marketing deals. They showed Rise of the Tomb Raider, and they closed it off with Halo Wars 2. Halo Wars was coming back. That was an incredible conference.
It was a good conference.
Sam, I think they do get back to that going into next gen with the acquisition of the extra studios. I think they definitely get back to that.
You think they get to a point where it's like E3 becomes, hey, here's what's coming out the rest of the year / real early next year, and Gamescom becomes a, hey, here's a sneak peek at what's coming out, 2 years in advance.
They
Yep.
should do
Type
it
thing.
that way. They should do it that way. I don't know why they
Okay,
don't.
I'm with that. I'm with that. That sounds good to me.
I hope they have a
Save it.
surprise. At least they have one surprise. They got to have at least one surprise. Like, I don't even care if you're showing 25 games for people to play. Just please don't show us the same thing you showed us already. Like, I don't want to see Crackdown again, unless you're announcing we can play the multiplayer. Like, I don't want to see anything with Crackdown. I don't want to see anything with Forza. There's so much information on Forza Horizon 4 at this point. I felt like I've been playing the game. That's how much information is out there at this point for Forza. I need more. You know what you could talk about? I want more information on Halo Infinite. I need to know what the hell that game is and what that's going to turn out to be.
It's gonna be a platform. It's gonna be forever. It's gonna be forever living. I'm telling you.
It makes sense. I don't think they're going to talk about Halo Infinite. However, I would not mind if they talked about Below and Ashen. That'd be okay with me. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Give those games some release dates. Maybe even confirm Below's coming to Game Pass. That'd be okay.
Right. No doubt. I'm with that. All right. Let's see here. Where was I? Somehow I lost my place in the chat section. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Mr. Kima asks, what Ubisoft game you want to come to Game Pass? What Ubisoft game was like that? I would say For Honor seems like a game that belongs on Game Pass.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a really good pick. It's made a comeback. It's doing really well.
It's a multiplayer game.
They're adding that expansion with the new faction. Sounds good to me. For Honor, or I'll tell you this, Rainbow Six Siege would be huge.
Rainbow Six Siege would be huge. You would, revamp the community. I think a lot of multiplayer games works well with Game Pass because it just gives you instant like rejuvenation of your of an install base of people to play. You know what I'm saying? New people that's trying it out. Same. That's what I think. What made, like you said, the influx of people who just bought Rocket League, because Rocket League is also competitive. You can play it offline, but playing online is a lot of fun. And when you get an influx of people looking to join and play the game, it really allows games to grow once again. So Game Pass just opened out all up to people. So that's pretty cool. Jose asks, what's your dream studios to work on old and unfinished Microsoft IPs?
Kind of what they're doing right now, like with Battletoads. Delilah Studios is, making the new Battletoads with a tiny team from Rare overseeing it. Just get new, small, creative teams to try out those old IPs and prove their hand. If not, oh well, okay, didn't work, move on to the next one. If it does, congrats, you're part of the family now. Come on in.
Right. I don't know, man. I'm a BioWare fanboy, so all I want is Knights of the Old Republic, and they don't own that game, so I don't know what to say about that. But anyway, Chief Tommy asks, do you think Microsoft is setting themselves up for disaster since they said they are working on a quadruple A game? That's a high bar to meet.
No, different companies have different standards. If we go by Ubisoft standards, then only Ubisoft and Activision make AAA games. Sony and Microsoft don't even meet their definitions because they have 1,000 people working on Assassin's Creed. Every company has different internal standards. The quadruple A thing has gotten out of hand because people saw it, but the reality is that was for internal use in terms of the people that they're hiring. That's all there is to it. Right. It's just their word for triple A, and even then, I'm kind of tired of the way people use triple A on Twitter because every company has a different standard.
Right.
But along with that, because he brought up the quadruple A thing, and they were basically talking about the initiative. So what genre game do you think the initiative will work on?
Well, if we look at Daryl Gallagher, the kinds of games he worked on and that he oversaw with Square Enix, you got Tomb Raider reboot, Hitman, and the Hitman Games as a Service, the 2016 first season. So I would say it's third-person action adventure. That just seemed, or at least third-person, definitely, regardless of anything else. And on top of that, Phil confirmed in an interview that Daryl Gallagher was hired because he made a pitch to them using one of their old IPs. So that screams Quantum. I mean, that's not Quantum Break. Excuse me. That screams Perfect Dark to me.
Yeah.
It really does.
Now, does Perfect Dark become a major player in that holiday rotation where we get that Halo Gears, Forzas, and whatnot? Does that now change the rotation to 4-game rotation? And
I think it does. I think it absolutely does, because it's clear if you look at the internal hiring before the listings got pulled down, they want the initiative to be one of their big studios, like right there up with maybe even bigger than 343 or the Coalition. They want this thing to be huge. So yeah, it maybe not the first game they release, but definitely anything beyond that, if it takes off, yeah, they're going to want Perfect Dark to be a big IP. They want Miss Dark to be one of their big protagonists moving forward. I think that makes sense to me.
Right. Before we finish up, I think 1 or 2 more questions. I want to thank Johnny Wellman for stopping out, hanging out with the team tonight as well. He's a big supporter of the channel, so I appreciate him stopping out as well. Let's see here. Chris Washington asks, should Microsoft buy Capcom?
No.
Did we have discussion? We had discussion before. We felt like, well, first we heard that there was like some type of law where an American or like an outside company couldn't buy Japanese studio.
Well, the government can intervene. It's not that they can't,
okay,
but it has to get cleared with the government.
Right.
First. Government can put a stop to it if they so choose. It's one of their laws. But I would say no, simply because Capcom is revitalizing as a major player, and I think they're one of the ones they're better off independent.
I'll be honest with you, I don't like any of Capcom's. Let me not say that before I put my foot in my mouth. Let me not say before I put my foot in my mouth. I will say this, that I don't think Capcom's portfolio is as good as people think it is. And here's why I say that. Their older stuff, absolutely amazing. Onimusha, Devil May Cry, the original stuff. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, still my favorite Marvel vs. Capcom of all time. Other than Monster Hunter, in that franchise in particular, maybe Dead Rising 3 at best, I haven't been excited about a Capcom game since the 360. They have put out nothing that has wowed me, that has made me want to be interested in anything that they've been doing, honestly. And Monster Hunter was the last great game that I could say I was completely blown away by and surprised at how good the game was for a game where you just hunt monsters all day. And I put 200 hours to that game. So for me, I don't think it will be a great pickup unless you plan to really make some massive changes within Capcom in the direction that they go. Obviously, Devil May Cry is being rebooted, and that's great for that. It looks great. The new engine looks crazy. It looks more realistic. It's going to be nuts. No one liked the new Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. That flopped hard as hell. Just a few other games I think that needs a reboot. What's that game with the planet?
A few games have planets in them.
What I'm saying is, it's called something. Isn't it called something Planet with the?
You're talking about Lost Planet.
Thank you, Lost Planet. Right. I hate that game. I hate that game. I hate that game because they had that old style mechanic. I hate games that have old style mechanics. Like you could walk around, you can hop over things, but you can't jump. But you have a grappling hook, so you use the grapple to do everything. It's like old school Resident Evil. Like you can reload, but you can't move. It's like, what part of your brain got messed up that you say, you know what, I can't move in order to reload this gun, or I can't jump over this thing. I need to use my grappling hook. Why put that in the game other than to hinder people and piss them off? And that's one of the things that I hate about Capcom and the way they build, their games and certain things. It's like, it's a hindrance. Don't put that in there to try to make it seem like it is an integral part of the story, because in my opinion, it does nothing but weaken the character and weaken the gameplay. So for me, I don't think Capcom would be a good pickup, in my opinion.
I think right now Capcom is actually on the rise. I think with Resident Evil 7, that was like one of the key factors of them kind of hitting this bounce back. I've been asking for Monster Hunter for a while on console. They finally brought it. That was huge for them. They actually reacted to fans, and they brought us a new Mega Man game. They released all the collections again. It looks like they're going to be working on another Mega Man game. They brought back Devil May Cry 5 on the reboot. It looks like the Resident Evil 2 remake looks really good. And I think they re-registered Onimusha franchise last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if that came back pretty soon. And there's been rumblings of Dino Crisis. So if the next couple of years, if they can, put out some quality content, I think they'll be back as a major player. They still have one of the, biggest name fighting games out there in Street Fighter. Marvel vs. Capcom was trash. I knew it was going to be trash before it came out just by the way it looked. But I also think that had a lot to do with them partnering with the new Disney and Marvel, and them trying to put out, this game rather quickly. So hopefully, they kind of bounce back from that. But I think Capcom is heading in the right direction, and there's rumors of Darkstalkers coming back. So if they can bring that back, that'd be pretty cool too. Still,
they got amazing fighting games. I won't doubt that. I just think that Capcom they really need to reboot their old franchises. That's what made them great. And the stuff they've been putting out this generation hasn't been impressive other than Monster Hunter. They have a long way to go. They need to reboot Dead Rising or get someone who is going to bring that thing into a new direction, because the last one they put out was trash as well. So I think Sega is the ultimate get. If you can get any Japanese studio as of right now, now I'm not saying like if a key purchase. Obviously, if you really had the power to grab a studio, you want to get Square, and that's like an impossible thing to do. But let's just say there was a studio that was available, and you had the possibility of getting, Sega would be the ultimate get. Their franchises, their history, the stuff that they own, the things that you can do with that studio, and you can revamp, and that talent, at least on some of the talent that they still have left, man, whew, I can imagine Microsoft and Sega teaming up and really getting back to what they were trying to do with Dreamcast and take it to a whole new level, be incredible. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. And finally, shout out to Jay Fonzarelli for stopping in the chat. We appreciate you, brother, for coming out and supporting the channel as well as the premier podcast for Xbox. So listen, man, that's going to be it for tonight's show. I want to thank everybody once again for stopping out. Please give us a thumbs up and a like. We greatly appreciate the support. It helps us to reach new audiences and lets people know that we have this amazing channel with all these amazing podcasts on it and this great team. You can catch the Inner Circle podcast on iTunes. So on your Apple or Mac devices, you can catch us there. You can listen to Tick Podcast on Google Music. Just look up podcast and look up Tick Podcast in Google. And we are officially on Spotify. You can catch us on Spotify at Tick Podcast in the podcast section when you're looking for things on Spotify to listen to. We will be back next week with another episode of Tick Podcast every Saturday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you guys go out and get your news from Tick Games Network. If you want to follow Tick Games Network, you can follow that on Twitter at Tick Games Network, where you get all the best multi-plat news in the world from some of the best writers out there. And of course, tomorrow is the Lord's Day, so you can check out Iron Lord Podcast. Cognito and team will be live around 1 p.m., so make sure you tune in for that. I believe Multiverse is taking a break. Am I right?
Multiverse is on break right now. Yeah.
Multiverse is on break. Big shout out to those guys. 100 episodes in a bag. I can't talk enough about this team. If you like comics, if you like movies, if you like TV, if you like talking and hearing about multi-plat games, great cast of guys over there, so check that out. And of course, you can catch Fame and the 2XP crew every Wednesday here at Tick Games Network, where they debate Xbox versus PlayStation. It's sort of the fanboy show without the fanboy nonsense, so you can always tune in and check out your latest 2XP. So we're going to get out of here. I want to thank everybody for supporting. I'm your host, Kara S. Kello, with B Money 101 and Dire Wolf 484. And we're off this planet. You guys have a great night. Peace.